The following program was made by KTOK with Dr. J. Herbert Holloman, Holloman, President of the University of Oklahoma, July 26, 1970.
This
Headliners, a discussion with the people who make the news, a public affairs presentation of the Oklahoma News Network.
This is Bob Douglas. In July 1968, the same month in which Dr. J. Herbert Holloman officially became president of the University of Oklahoma, Dr. Holloman was optimistic and excited when he appeared for the first time on Headliners and said,
"What a university president can do more than anything else is to set a style and to set standards below which he will not go, nor shall the university go. And the most important thing is the integrity of the president of a university or of any other organization, and the style he sets, and the things by which he demands of the institution and demands of his friends, the students and the faculty. You just don't put up with second-class actions, and that's the style you set. You don't influence it by saying you must not, but you influence it by the character of the man that you are. And it's my hope, my belief, that I can help set a style to which my family and you and the people of this state and the students and the faculty will be proud. And that's the most important thing for me to do. It's not to tell people how to act, because you can't in a university, really. What you do is you hope to have people act in a way of which they themselves can be proud.
It was, at least in part, that lifestyle that ruined Dr. Holloman, led to his resignation Thursday, left him without family, alienated many Oklahomans, and made him, in his own words, free and broke. 2 years ago, Dr. Holloman said Oklahoma is an exciting place to be, full of wonderful people. He said he liked his job and had no disillusionment about the state or the university. But talking with news editor Bob Durgan, a different Dr. Holloman. He was besieged from all sides and forced out by assaults on his style of living, of handling campus unrest, of dealing with government, faculty, and the public. For the next half hour, news editor Bob Durgan talks with Dr. Holloman about the last explosive days of his administration.
Dr. Holloman, ever since it was learned Governor Bartlett wanted you ousted from the presidency, your position, accomplishments, and even personal lifestyle has been the center of controversy. Now, last Thursday, you dropped the big surprise by announcing your resignation at an OU Regents Board meeting. It came after the Regents rebuffed the governor's ouster attempt and gave you a healthy vote of confidence. So, Dr. Holloman, let's start Headliners today with this question. Why did you resign as president of Oklahoma University?
I felt after the Regents meeting, in which they voted not unanimously but overwhelmingly to continue me as president of the university, that there was hope that the university could continue its business, that we could continue our development and make this a university a more vital and a better place for youngsters to receive an education. Within hours after that meeting, the governor called the Board of Regents to his office and told them that he was dissatisfied with their decision. Therefore, he continued to make me and the university an issue rather than accepting, as I had felt that he would, the decision of the independent constitutional board. Subsequent to that, he made an appointment of a new member of the Board of Regents who had been previously an aide to the governor. It was obvious to me that the governor and the political forces in the state intended to make my presidency a part of the forthcoming campaign, and that the fact that I had been given a vote of confidence was not truly accepted. This university needs to develop and continue its development with the plans and ideas that many people have contributed to over the last 3 years. I felt that I was, in a sense, going to be used as a means of attacking the university, its general policies, its openness, and its new development of educational programs. I said in my statement, when my continued presence becomes the excuse for denying citizens and members of this community those fundamental values on which our life depends, then I can no longer stand in silence. I cannot, and I will not be so used. To allow this would violate the confidence and support of all those people who work so hard for this institution and its potential for excellence. You see, there's a very interesting thing. As far as I know, in any statement of the governor or of the Board of Regents to me, privately or publicly, there has never been a charge that the university was not improving or that my administration of the university was not successful or satisfactory. I essentially was attacked because of my beliefs and because of my style, and because I have insisted throughout that the facts concerning the university be known, including its financial status, and that the people of the university should be free to inquire, to speak, to read, to hear, and to dissent. I believe that what was being attacked is the basic liberties of the university as an institution. And as long as I was here, the faculty, the students, the employees, and the concerned citizens would in effect not understand the nature of that attack and the tyranny which it foretells.
Dr. Holloman, when you made your resignation official at the board meeting, you warned the academic community of tyranny in your statement. Just what did you mean by that?
A person can be oppressed, his beliefs and his lifestyle attacked, even though he does nothing fundamentally wrong. He's still doing his job. That is tyranny. When one attacks a person for either how he looks or for what he believes. If I could be attacked and ousted by pressure from the governor or anyone else through the regents, then any faculty member, any student, any employee can be attacked likewise. If people can use the press and thereby put pressure on the regents or on me or through the governor's office, if special people are appointed to the Board of Regents who will take the governor's position, then the situation becomes one in which power is used to usurp the freedoms of the people. And that's what's going on. And that's what is a tendency to go on wherever freedom of speech criticizes or is different from the beliefs of those in power. Sometimes there are those who therefore want to deny the right of free speech.
After the push to have you ousted, Dr. Holloman, the OU Board of Regents came to the rescue and gave you a vote of confidence. But then you decided to quit anyway last week. In making that decision, was there any politics involved?
If you mean partisan politics, Republican, Democrat, or for or against a particular candidate, absolutely not. But there, of course, is politics involved. Politics is the nature of the forces applied by groups and people to govern or to affect the government themselves. And in that sense, the entire issue is a political issue. It's a very interesting thing. I have never found out precisely why it was that the regents were trying to determine whether I should stay or not. The first thing that happened that I knew about was an article in a newspaper which said for some reason that I should resign. The second thing I heard was a statement by the governor that in appointing the new regent, Dr. Lockhart, he had raised the issue of my continuation. Now, therefore, this isn't a political issue. I don't know what it is. I can't think of any other reason or what else to call it.
I was thinking along the lines of perhaps a move to embarrass the governor.
I have no desire to embarrass the governor. What I'd like to do is to have this governor stop meddling in the affairs of the university.
Dr. Holloman, Do you think the governor has been put in an awkward position because of your surprise move to resign?
I don't know what the governor's position is, frankly. I didn't want to put him in an awkward position. I wanted to do what I thought was right. I, as you know, don't have a job. I haven't made any plans for the future. I spent 10 days away from here closely with my family, trying to make the right decision for the University of Oklahoma. I felt that my continued presence here, as I've already said, would make the attacks on the university such that it might not survive as a free institution. If the governor is embarrassed, I guess he's embarrassed, but certainly I had no intention of doing so.
Let's get off the political aspect for a minute and the controversy surrounding why you have decided to resign, Doctor. You seem to be well liked by students and faculty alike here at OU. Now that you've decided to resign, what do you think the student and faculty reaction at this campus will be now, perhaps later this fall?
In my statement, I stated that I gave my resignation with hesitation and anguish, but I also said that I had implicit faith and trust that the university community would oppose the very real threat of tyranny that the university faces. I also called on the students, the faculty, the employees, and the friends of the institution to begin to understand the nature of what goes on in the university, that it must be a place where young people particularly have the right to criticize, have the right to peacefully demonstrate, but at the same time the university must stay open. I believe that the reaction of the students and the faculty and the employees hopefully will now be one in which they realize the nature of the threat and what's required in order to keep the university vital, alive, and healthy. It's for that reason that I resigned.
Dr. Holloman, earlier you were talking about the difference in lifestyles and the difference in beliefs between perhaps the academic community and those seeking your ouster. Would you say that this is the most major contributing factor to your leaving this university, the difference in the lifestyles and beliefs?
The problem exists all over America. University presidents are resigning or being fired all over the United States. I don't feel very lonely in this particular category. The problem is a national problem. There are people who are deeply disturbed by what's going on in America. Particularly there are young people. That disturbance in and of itself threatens the established community. And when people act differently, look differently, speak differently from others, the established community feels either guilty or threatened or is hurt. And their reaction is one often of repression, saying, this must be stopped. Now, what happened on the ROTC adventure on our campus was that by an accident, the students were allowed to stay on the field and not forced to go in the stands. It was a misunderstanding between people. The worst that happened, and I don't like it a bit, was some profanity. There was nobody hurt. There were no rocks thrown. There was no disruption as such in the ceremony. The ceremony went on in schedule. There was some noise and there was some profanity. Now the question is, due to this misunderstanding, should A, the demonstration be allowed at all, and there are those who say that it shouldn't be allowed at all, or secondly, should we have used sufficient force to force 400 or 500 students into from a place where they understood that they could be? I don't believe that any son or daughter of any citizen of Oklahoma should be killed, hurt, beat, either for being in the wrong place on a football field or for profanity. I believe we must understand basically and fundamentally that the right to demonstrate, the right to speak out, the right to dress differently so long as the law is not violated and so long as others are not hurt is fundamental to this country. These are the kinds of issues that I think are involved. And what's happened here, it seemed to me, was my mere presence increased the divisiveness in the society. The continuation of the governor to attempt to remove me or at least to be critical of me after the supportive vote of the constitutionally formed regents indicated to me that my own presence would only add to the polarization and divisiveness. For that reason, I resigned. I think that's the basic issue.
Well, Doctor, the issue of you being replaced seemed to have cropped up after the ROTC demonstrations on campus last May. Now, why do you suppose the whole issue of your ouster became embroiled just right after those demonstrations?
Several events that took place more or less simultaneously. One is that was a clear and obvious beginning of the election campaign for governor of the state. The second was a series of articles in the Oklahoma Journal having to do with the presidency, some of which were critical, some of the criticism, I believe, were entirely justified. And the third factor was the criticism of the governor and others in the state as to our handling of the situation on having to do with the disturbances on the campus. Now, there are many things that I would do over indifferently in hindsight, but the thing I would like to point out about the ROTC disturbances is I was here, and I had to make decisions on the ground under the circumstances. And what I had to protect was first the lives of people, and the second is property, and thirdly, I had to protect this institution. Now, I made what decisions I thought were proper at the time, and under the circumstances, I still think they're proper. What I believe is that the governor and others in the state have believed for a long time that the general directions of leading this institution to be one of the better institutions of the country, still peaceful, still open, but vital and critical, have basically been objected to by some people. One of the issues, for example, over a long period is that I have stated, and I'll state now, that higher education in this state's underfinanced. It's one of the poorest financed educational institutions, educational arrangements of any state in the country. That's clear. The figures show it, have shown it. And obviously from the leadership, political leadership of the state, who insist that they've been doing everything they can, you can understand why that would be embarrassing. It is true that the state provides a reasonable amount of money per capita than the state. The difficulty is we have about 50% more kids going to school than any other state. So the amount of money we provide per student is inadequate. Now, I think that there's several factors that caused the situation to arise at the particular time it did. But I really think that the interesting thing is that I've asked the question of a number of people, are you dissatisfied with the concrete developments of the university that have taken place in the last 2 to 3 years? The new colleges, the change in budgeting, the improvements in administration, and in general, there is no serious complaint. And what that really means is that there's no substance, no substantial substance to the problem, that the issue has to do with, as I said before, philosophy and lifestyle and beliefs. And when we get down to one fellow wanting to impose his beliefs on the other, we're in terrible shape. And I have said, for example, that a university should not be used for political ends. By this I mean that the institution itself shouldn't get into political issues like Vietnam or what have you. That means that I would refuse to close this institution on any circumstance having to do with political problem. That is a contrary view to almost every other major university in the country. And yet, you see, there are people who attack the fact that we had a reasonably peaceful campus and we had no one hurt or really disturbed during these times.
Dr. Holloman, the ROTC demonstrations were bound to cause some controversy and get in the headlines. But do you think the issue, more fire was added to the fuel, so to speak, because of outside contributing factors, let's say, from state agencies and so forth?
Well, I've already said that the governor and others have disagreed with the way the matter was handled on the campus. And some very well-meaning people have so disagreed. I have no doubt that the governor, for example, is sincere in his disagreement of the handling of the matter. I think he would have brought in the state police. I also think if he brought in the state police, there had been some students hurt. I had suffered through in my own heart the killing of students on the Kent State campus. And I'm not going to be responsible, if I can help it, for anybody being killed merely because there's a demonstration or distortion, we're going to try to keep the peace.
Well, how severely were you criticized for your handling of the ROTC demonstrations? What were you told you should have done?
I was told first that I should have never allowed the students on the football field, and that was due to a misunderstanding between the students and security officers here. They thought they'd been told they could be in the end zone, and we thought that they were told that they couldn't be, and a matter of such complexity couldn't be worked out during the time when 500 people were out there on the field. Basically, we were criticized for, one, allowing them on the field, and secondly, allowing profanity and obscenity. Those were the two basic criticisms. On the other hand, I have received many letters of support. Many people have stated that this is a way that the matter should be handled. We recently had a panel of faculty and students and outsiders who reviewed the whole matter and who endorsed our method of handling the situation. It's my belief that the basic view of the governor, for example, and some of the state police officials, is that any violation of the rules, no matter what the consequence, should be met immediately with arrest, no matter what force should be used. I think that any thoughtful administrator and law enforcement officer recognizes that there are times when the consequences of such action for minor violation of the rules, not when somebody else is being threatened, is disastrous. The Riot Commission reports of this country, the senior law enforcement officers, my own security people, thoughtful people on the campus, all agree that that would have been a disaster. And I think that's the basic argument between the governor and me.
Dr. Holloman, in light of your resignation September 1st, do you think there's any chance of it alienating the academic community against state government, vice versa, or perhaps even involve average citizens?
The only way I can tell about this is a reaction of the last couple of days. I've been overwhelmed by the number of telephone calls, letters, telegrams of people who are deeply concerned. I think that they have understood the nature of my decision, that it was not personally motivated, either out of fear or unwillingness to suffer the heat in the kitchen. As President Truman once said, if you can't stand the heat, you better get out. I'm not worried, wasn't worried about the heat. I think it was clear in the way I made the announcement, I hoped it was, what I was saying that there's a real danger to the university. I think that people of this community, students, the faculty, and people concerned citizens will in fact, and hopefully, I hope they will, take whatever action, by speech, by talk, that is necessary to ensure that the administration of the university is free from influence by those whose main motivation is that they wish to impose their beliefs on the institution. And one of the things that concerns me very deeply is that a constant argument about the university and what's right or wrong or what it should be done may stimulate disorder in the fall. And that's one of the things that I wanted to avoid very much. And I hope that the students and faculty here particularly will see to it that peace is kept, but that the necessary steps are taken to ensure the protection of this institution against unwarranted interference.
Do you think that Governor Bartlett tried to get somebody to that will more or less go along with his philosophy and his beliefs, and if he's successful in something like that, should he try to do it, what do you think would happen to OU?
Well, I can answer the latter question first. I think that if the governor or any person in the state or any other state tries to get his nominee as president of a free university, it would be a disaster. I can answer that question first. Now I'll answer the second question. Do you think he'll try? I have no idea what Governor Bartlett will try. I believe that the regents are on the path to having a search process for a new president, which will involve students and faculty and alumni and employees, and that they hopefully, and I believe they will, I believe the regents now will ensure that they will, be free to make nominations of their own choice. It would be hard for me to believe that the regents now, and I don't think they will allow any outside political influence on the choice of a new president.
What advice do you have for whomever fills your shoes?
Have the hide of an elephant. I guess that's the first piece of advice. Second, I have strong advice for the regents and the new president, and that is they should agree in the first instance that when anyone within the institution without raises an issue publicly about the administration, that they take a strong stand as against that means of settling problems, whether the new president's right or wrong. He has got to have the full support of the Board of Regents to handle internal problems internally. That does not mean that there shouldn't be advice and influence. But one of the issues that was developed during this recent time is the head of the medical center took complaints of the university to the public press. Those complaints had never been brought to me, nor the regents, and the case was tried in the public press, and that's not a way an institution can be run. And I think the new president has got to have that kind of support. I also think he's got to have a promise from the governor, whoever he is, that the regents are an independent body acting independently, and he either by indirection or by public statement will not attempt to affect the management of the institution.
Dr. Holloman, there's been talk that a great many, perhaps even the majority of citizens in Oklahoma are against you, are anti-Holloman. Do you think they are? And if not, why?
And I've never run a public opinion survey poll. I know that there are people who support me and the institution very forcefully. I know that there are people who are very disturbed. I would suspect that the publicity on this campus, just like any other university in the country, about disruption, about strikes, about underground student newspapers, about dissension, about anti-Vietnam, about marijuana, what happens is that people then see what they think are problems of the university, and the nearest person that they can jump on about it is the president. I would always expect that, but the problems that I just named are not going to be solved by eliminating Holloman. The problems are deep in America. There's a deep difference in value judgments of people. The university is a place that is going to continue to be a place where dissent and disagreement and different ways of living are going to be expressed. Getting rid of Holloman will help the problem. Next president be the same boat.
What's the future look like, Doctor?
Well, in a sense, sort of marvelous. I don't have a job. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm free. I can, within limits, subject to libel and otherwise, say what I want. I've got a lot of wonderful friends and a number of people that I love very, very dearly. And I found out in recent days that they love me too. I guess what I'll do is try to justify their love.
Let's take this, Dr. Holloman, and put it in one paragraph. What does it mean to you? What do you think about it?
It means a great deal to me. I came here because I deeply believe that this country has serious problems, that the young people of this country are its most valuable asset. I care about them. I care about the country. What I really came here to do was to set an institution on a new path, to be an example to the rest of the institutions in America. I'm sorry and regret that circumstances are such that in order to continue that, I feel it's in the best interest of the institution for me to leave. I sincerely believe that this country, because of its divisiveness, because of misunderstanding of minorities, because of the disturbance of the youth, because of the repression of some who would therefore punish them, is in very serious trouble. I could not contribute to that trouble. I want to do what I can to solve it. And if I could make the situation more peaceful and at the same time ensure freedom and support the young people of America, I had to go.
Dr. J. Herbert Holloman, outgoing University of Oklahoma president, visiting with us on the program Headliners. This is Bob Durgan.
This is a KTOK program with condemned killer Howard Gaddis, Howard Gaddis, recorded September 19, 1971.